goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And good morning to you. I just had a great big sneeze and I might have another one. And apologize in advance. Welcome to a beautiful Monday, November 12th. And Veterans Day, technically, right? Veterans Day really was yesterday, but we insist on tacking on a Monday, I guess. I tip my hat to those who are serving and have served our nation. I especially tip my hat to those who do serve now when you don't have to, when it is a purely voluntary commitment. Although it could be argued that some people with fewer opportunities in front of them might see volunteering in the military as a way out of where they are unhappily at the moment, which might not come into play for a lot of other Americans who are better off. That's the part of the volunteer system I don't like. I don't like it. But to those of you who have served, again, my gratitude for stepping up. In this day and age, you represent such a small sliver of the people that makes you truly special. I think that we've got a veteran coming in. This is me at my most disorganized. I set up an interview a few weeks ago, but I'm not sure I finalized it properly and have not heard from the interviewee. But it could be in the second half hour we will be joined, and I certainly hope we will, by Helen Gerhardt, who is a veteran of the Iraq War. That said, and because I'm not sure if she's coming, and because I have mentioned Veterans Day, let me do something right here at the top that I don't believe I've ever done at the top, but it seems that it would be fitting and proper to read the names of those who have died in Afghanistan since the last time we read the names, which was, I hate to tell you, not terribly long ago. I don't have a whole lot But then again, even one is too many, if you ask me. Because even though we do not have active duty soldiers in Iraq anymore, and even though we are drawing down from Afghanistan, we have thousands of men and women very much in harm's way there, and they are still dying. We are still at war, and you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't have known it to listen to the presidential campaign. Isn't that true? You wouldn't have even known it. And the thing that a lot of people talked about because it was so stunning was that at the Republican convention, the war never came up. You know, Republicans and war, they go together like, you know, a horse and carriage, usually. Didn't touch it. Romney didn't mention our soldiers. It was very, very odd, but I think telling. And telling about America's blind eye to the reality of the people we have sent into this morass. The Department of Defense has identified 2,132 American service members who have died as a part of the Afghan war. These are the most recent. Alex Dominion, 21 years old, Corporal, Army, Richfield Springs, New York. Brett Gornowitz, 27, Specialist, Army, Alden, New York. Ryan Jane, 22, Specialist, Army, Campbell, New York. Matthew Cantor, 22, Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Navy, Gillette, New Jersey. Kashif Memon, 31, Staff Sergeant, Army, Houston. Clinton Ruiz, 22, Sergeant, Army, Murrieta, California. Dane Venny, 29, Staff Sergeant, Army, Port Henry, New York. Michael Duskin, 42, Chief Warrant Officer, Army, Orange Park, Florida. Brandon Buttry, 19, Private, Army, Shenandoah, Iowa. Shane Wilson, 20, Private, Army, Kuna, Idaho. So, all right. Well, the after-election glow is still somewhat there, I must say, and I'm enjoying myself most of all by reading Republican commentators now, and seeing the Republicans try to come to grips with what happened to them on Tuesday night, and it is interesting that now we see the party dividing into people willing to leave the bubble, people willing to leave the alternate universe they have created, and those who still don't believe they're in a bubble. It's gratifying to me, actually, to see the people who acknowledge that they're in a bubble, although those are the very people who had to have known, really, they were in a bubble all along and chose to go along with it. So these are the best and the brightest of them coming out, and also the ones who are more outfitted for survival, because in order to survive, you have to face reality. You can't be telling yourself lies. You can't be not seeing clearly. And if all you're seeing is through the fog of Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, believe me, you ain't seeing clearly. So for those willing to step away and walk out into the glaring light of day, I credit them to some extent. But what I want to share with you right now is, because when I said I credit them to some extent, there's part of me that would like the Republican Party not to get it. To be so obtuse, so stubborn in their self-imposed ignorance. So stubborn that they will refuse to see what the people were saying to them. And consequently will head into another few cycles of elections and have to get drubbed again if they just keep doing the same thing. Part of me likes that idea because I'm thinking, great, we'll have a shot at taking back the House. We can pad our Senate majority. But the other more civic-minded part of me thinks that it is always for the best to have more than one point of view on the table. I mean, and so it is good to have two viable parties, minimally two viable parties. At the moment, we're in danger of having just one, and that would be the Democrats. So I'm sure some of you have heard this, but I'm willing to bet most of you have not, and that's my own mathematics. But I would like to share a 3-minute oration that Rachel Maddow did on her program after the election. This is a very smart woman, and she's got it. If there are Republicans who could, I'm sure Republicans don't watch her show very much, but if Republicans could hear this and know that she was speaking absolutely honestly as a good American, as a citizen, it would benefit them. But I think it benefits all of us to hear it. So if you would allow me, I'd like to play it now. This is Rachel Maddow on Obama's re-election.
Ohio really did go to President Obama last night, and he really did win. And he really was born in Hawaii. And he really is legitimately President of the United States, again. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics did not make up a fake unemployment rate last month. And the Congressional Research Service really can find no evidence that cutting taxes on rich people grows the economy. And the polls were not skewed to oversampled Democrats. And Nate Silver was not making up fake projections about the election to make conservatives feel bad. Nate Silver was doing math. And climate change is real. And rape really does cause pregnancy sometimes. And evolution is a thing. And Benghazi was an attack on us. It was not a scandal by us. And nobody is taking away anyone's guns. And taxes have not gone up. And the deficit is dropping, actually. And Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. And the moon landing was real. And FEMA is not building concentration camps. And UN election observers are not taking over Texas. And moderate reforms of the regulations on the insurance industry and the financial services industry in this country are not the same thing as communism. Listen. Last night was a good night for liberals and for Democrats for very obvious reasons. But it was also possibly a good night for this country as a whole. Because in this country, we have a two-party system in government. And the idea is supposed to be that the two sides both come up with ways to confront and fix the real problems facing our country. They both propose possible solutions to our real problems. And we debate between those possible solutions. And by the process of debate, we pick the best idea. That competition between good ideas from both sides about real problems in the real country should result in our country having better choices, better options than if only one side is really working on the hard stuff. And if the Republican Party and the conservative movement and the conservative media is stuck in a vacuum-sealed, door-locked spin cycle of telling each other what makes them feel good and denying the factual lived truth of the world, then we are all deprived as a nation of the constructive debate between competing, feasible ideas about real problems. Last night, the Republicans got shellacked, and they had no idea it was coming. And we saw them in real time, in a real humiliating time, not believe it even as it was happening to them. And unless they are going to secede, they are going to have to pop the factual bubble they have been so happy living inside if they do not want to get shellacked again. And that will be a painful process for them, I'm sure, but it will be good for the whole country, left, right, and center. You guys, we're counting on you. Wake up. There's real problems in the world. There are real knowable facts in the world. Let's accept those and talk about how we might approach our problems differently. Let's move on from there. If the Republican Party and the conservative movement and conservative media are forced to do that by the humiliation they were dealt last night, we will all be better off as a nation. And in that spirit, congratulations, everybody. Big night.
Okay. Well done, I think. Well said, I think. And you are seeing people, as I said earlier, on the Republican side, venturing out and actually seconding what Rachel Maddow said there. One I read this morning by David Frum, who is a very much a conservative. He was in the White House as a special assistant to the president. And now he's one of these Republicans conservative Republican, who's trying to talk sense to his fellows. For heaven's sakes, Bill Kristol was on Fox yesterday trying to talk sense to his minions. And he was just saying, look, is the party going to fall on its sword to keep a few millionaires from getting a tax cut? Is that what we're going to do? Well, there's a whole lot of them, that would answer that. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But it's interesting how quickly some are willing to turn. So, Kristol, bang. Throw the gazillionaires overboard. Throw them overboard. They're killing us. And then he actually went so far as to suggest that anyway, half of them voted Democrat anyway. What? What? You mean millionaires are not all Republicans? He decided that the only Democratic millionaires, he had to label them as Hollywood. I can assure Mr. Kristol, and he knows it, that there are plenty of extremely wealthy, very wealthy, multi-millionaires who happily vote for Democrats and did so on Tuesday because they, unlike a lot of people, decide on who to vote for, not based on only their own selfish considerations, which I think an awful lot of Republicans do. They don't buy these rich Democrats. They don't buy the notion that continuing to give them breaks is going to help people who don't have money. They know that doesn't work. That trickle-down crap has been discredited over and over and over and over and over again. They vote Democrat because they think everybody gets well served when everybody has a legitimate shot. And that's what the American people were voting for. Because Barack Obama made it very clear during this campaign that that's what he was talking about. A fair shot. So I can imagine the despair of the more realistic, more pragmatic Republicans right now dealing with their constantly hysterical base. But here is David Frum now attempting to talk them down off the ledge. And what's interesting is you have to figure that what he's trying to do is tell them reality. And it means that he's one of the conservatives who was willing to listen to their constant repetition of unreality and not say anything. Let him go on and on. Now he realizes I gotta tell him the truth. The mood among American conservatives, he says, is one of apocalyptic despair. Having convinced themselves, see, this is inside the bubble talking to themselves, having convinced themselves that this election pitted freedom against tyranny, they now must wonder, did their country just democratically vote for tyranny? Yeah, on Fox News, Bill O'Reilly explained the meaning of the election to the despairing crowd. The white establishment is outnumbered. The demographics are changing. It's not a traditional America anymore. And these new untraditional Americans, they want stuff. They want things. And who's going to give them things? President Obama. He knows it, and he ran on it. Okay, so that's Bill O'Reilly's intelligent take on the election. And it is one that as I said, I'm enjoying reading Republicans right now, seeing them wrestling with this. Believe me, his takeaway, O'Reilly's takeaway, is shared by an extraordinary number of people who you can tell they have brains in their head, but they simply can't see. The meme is now that the non-white takers are now outnumbering the white makers. And these non-white takers are going to use their power and majority to pillage everything the makers have created and redistribute it to the takers. In the process, of course, they will destroy America. And then Frum says, hey, guess what? That is incorrect. So it's funny to watch one of the conservatives trying to talk sense, because O'Reilly is simply telling them what they've been telling themselves now for years, and he's continuing it. He's not backing off. So to hear Frum try to correct the misimpressions that they have swallowed whole all these years from their warm blanket of media universe that they live in. Frum. The line between making and taking is not a racial line. In fact, the biggest government program we have, Medicare, benefits a population that is 85% white. President Barack Obama was not reelected by people who want to take. The president was reelected by people who want to work and who were convinced that the president's policies were more likely to give them jobs. This is a conservative talking to his fellows. The United States did not vote for socialism. It couldn't, because neither party was offering socialism. Now, where was this guy before the election? Where were these people before the election? So he knew every time his cohorts on Fox or any place else were calling Obama a socialist or a Marxist or anything. He knew it was not true, but he did not speak up. Now he's speaking up because he's scared. He's telling his people neither party is a socialist party. Both parties champion a free enterprise economy, cushioned by a certain amount of social insurance. Generally, the Democrats want more social insurance. The Republicans want less. National politics is a contest to move the line of scrimmage in a game where there's no such thing as a forward pass, only a straight charge ahead at the defensive line. To gain 3 yards, that's a big play. Whatever you think of the Obama record, it's worth keeping in mind that by any measure, free enterprise has been winning for a long, long time under this so-called Marxist. And then he goes on to give these idiots who've been brainwashed on the right a history lesson about how much more government regulation there was in the 50s and the 60s that they in the good old days. How the government was then regulating the price of natural gas. They regulated the route of every airplane, every freight train, every truck, and every merchant ship. You couldn't own a gold bar. That was a crime. The top rate of income tax was 91%. He's telling Republicans this because they don't know it. This is under Republican administrations and the Eisenhower administration. It was illegal to own a phone. Do you remember that? You could never have a phone. You rented your phone from the phone company. And I remember when I moved here to Pittsburgh, I had one of those big black 20-pound rotary phones. And I knew I'd never paid for it. I rented it. I knew it wasn't mine. But I took it. And nobody came running after me looking for it because by then, even the phone companies didn't care anymore. I brought that with me, but I knew technically it was not my property. He says, Frum says, hey guys, okay, I got a person to talk to? I'll do that in a minute. Hello?
Hello. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say that it's already started, too, with Obama in the second term, how he's going to have a terrible second term with the media. I'm already reading articles about it. It's gives you kind of like nothing's going to happen. It's going to be the same old shit. Second verse, I don't know.
Well,
have a good day.
Well, thank you. It's going to be the same old shit. Have a good day. Well, all right. I listen, I'm not despairing yet. He hadn't even been sworn in for his second term. He's got some clout right now that he didn't have before. He also has the mandate of the American people behind him. And those Republicans, John Boehner knows, and he's told the fools in his caucus, hey guys, we stand for re-election again in just 2 years. The public thinks we haven't been doing our job. They just re-elected the guy we've been fighting and not cooperating with. I think it might be a good idea if we didn't continue with that game plan because you might lose your job next time around. And apparently some of these guys are starting to hear this. Well, we'll see. It ain't ever going to be pretty. God knows. It ain't ever going to be pretty. But Frum tells these idiots that, even white heterosexual men guys are actually freer in 2012 than they were in, let's say, 1962. Because this is a freer country in every way. And he's begging them to drop all of this craziness that they've been telling themselves and underscoring and underscoring and underscoring. I don't know how do you undo like 15, 20 years of propaganda? How do you undo that and the damage? And it's fascinating to see the people who in the party who are saying, who's really harmed us in all of this. Rush Limbaugh has. Glenn Beck has. Hannity has. Fox News has. They have not helped us. We all thought they were our ace in the hole. We had our own media universe. But they're the ones who, more than anything, kept pulling the party farther and farther and farther to the right and filling their heads with misinformation. Nothing so typifies the fact that the Republican Party doesn't have a clue about how Americans really think and feel and what they really desire is to see how clueless the campaign itself was. How they were truly startled by their loss. When the numbers, when all the writing was on the wall for them to see, but they couldn't see it. Because they too had fallen victim to this alternative universe. How many years have I been telling Republicans that they weren't living in the real world? How many years have we tried to talk them out? Come on out! It's really okay out here. I know it seems a little scary to you. Yes, there are black people. Ooh! And yes, there are gay people in there getting married. There are all kinds of people out here, and you know what? They're fine. It's okay. Come on out. No one wants to take your guns anymore. No one is trying to confiscate things from you and your freedom. And this is insane what they believe. Well, good luck, David Frum, and good luck to everybody else trying to talk sense. He ends his piece with this plaintive call. We need more sensible conservatives. As for the others, they should take a couple of aspirins, stay quietly indoors until their fever has subsided and they are ready to say and do something useful again. Well, gonna be interesting watching these guys flailing around. The fact that they started at such a level of denial means I wouldn't give them they will come back, though. I've lived long enough to know that any time you write the obituary of a political party after a big loss, you're wrong. The Democrats have had their obit written 2 or 3 times in my lifetime, wrong. And the Republicans have had their obit written a few times, too, and wrong. So we need more of what Maddow is suggesting and of what Frum is saying. Get serious. Come into the real world. Work on the real problems. And then put your ideas on the table. And the Democrats will do the same. And then let's find the best possible ways to move forward. That is how it's supposed to work. We'll take a break.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Your furnace and air conditioning run nonstop? Are your heating and cooling bills too high? Call Pittsburgh Foam Insulation. Their certified installers are ready to insulate your home using the best wall insulation product available. And the owner has over 20 years experience installing insulation in homes. Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is locally owned and is not a franchise. Unlike the other guys, there are no franchise fees that will be passed on to you, which means Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is able to offer their customers a lower, more affordable price than their competitor. Call 412-856-6100 for a free, no obligation estimate, or on the web at pittsburghfoaminsulation.com.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on the 2012 Best of Pittsburgh winners. This week, get discounts on the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, the Pittsburgh Opera's Don Giovanni, Chicago at Heinz Hall, Dozens, and the Harris Grill. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's e-commerce mall. bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Are we back? Mm-hmm. Well, that was quick. And I am joined by Helen Gerhardt. She's the veteran. You have to pluck a veteran out of. She's the veteran.
The token veteran.
The token veteran. Because God knows, I'm not. I didn't serve. That one didn't serve. And I was talking earlier in the show, the vast. Here's where the 99% and 1% really works. Veterans now, people who actively choose to join up, it's less than 1%, isn't it, of the public?
I don't know the stats on that at this point. I know that with the economy the way it is, the military is often considered the option to get to school, to get to work, to get training for work. So even the DREAM Act is, there's, as much as I support that, there's this requirement for military service for immigrants that gives me some pause. I served with a Muslim man from Turkey who served in order to get his citizenship and had to fight for 2 years after he got back, after everyone knew that he was the most exemplary soldier in our unit. Somebody with an incredible work ethic and courage, sense of humor, kindness, and yet he had to fight so hard to get that citizenship in return for his service.
Yeah, and it makes you a little queasy too then, which I think I mentioned in the first part of the show, that it's a volunteer army, but there are a huge number of Americans who don't even consider it as an option because they have all these other options. You're saying that for some in America, that option is like the one possible road to getting somewhere.
I served with so many men and women who chose the military as a way out of poverty, many single mothers whose babies were being taken care of by their parents while they were going through basic training. Many parents that were separated from their children because of their service in Iraq, and especially repeated deployments over and over and over again.
Why did you, let's hear your story, just so people... Were you somebody who joined because of poverty? You joined up when you were what? You were 30?
I was. It was in 2000, before Bush was elected. I always want to put that little qualification in there.
You mean if he had been elected, you wouldn't have?
I wouldn't have. I would not have, because I saw him as a warmonger. I didn't see really him as a possibility for being elected. I thought it was so unlikely he'd be elected.
I understand.
More for me, right? But no, most of the people that I signed up with him went through basic training, really they thought they were going to be doing peacetime service. They didn't, they did it for much more for economic reasons than they did for the kind of...
Well, I remember a lot of people who were in the Guard. You were the Missouri...
I was in the National Guard, Missouri National Guard. I was in a trucking company.
Okay. A lot of people who, and it had always been the case in my head, that to sign up to do the National Guard... You didn't get shipped over to fight a foreign war, did you?
I have to say that my recruiter was... You hear a lot of stories about recruiters being deceptive. Mine was very honest with me. I honestly did a sales job on myself. I came in with the glossy pamphlets and said, look, I'll be helping with fires and hurricanes and floods here on the domestic front. And he said, do you know that the National Guard is often called the International Guard? And that you are a trucker. You would be a trucker if you sign up for this, which means that you would be sent. We have been sent over and over again into interventions around the world. So you will be a soldier if you sign up. So he was very honest with me.
Wow.
He said you're doing this to get back to school, right? You're doing this so that because you feel like you can't afford it. You go home and you think about this really carefully, because right now you're signing up for domestic
do good work.
Do good work, and that's not what you
Wow, that's an amazing recruiter.
He's a very unusual recruiter. I heard many, many stories of people that there's a quota system. Recruiters have to get a certain number of people, and lots of deception out there. Lots of misrepresentation, but he was very honest.
Okay, but so what was driving you, though, was that you needed to get
back to school, but I really did not explore all my options the way I should have. I cannot give a good, it's one of the great mistakes of my life. Yeah, absolutely. And you say that I serve, but I didn't serve. I actually helped make our country less safe, because the way that I saw that we treated civilians, my unit delivered water to Abu Ghraib, we in fact caused such enormous cause for revenge. We caused so much suffering and pain in Iraq. I've worked with Iraqi refugees here in Pittsburgh. I've heard stories. I know a woman that I care for very much who was tortured by a group that we funded and trained. And she is over here because she served us, because she thought we would change things in Iraq, and so really sacrificed a lot to work for us, to help us. So you are a veteran who gets no sense of pleasure from your service.
No, I don't. You feel guilt.
I feel a sense of guilt. I have felt intense guilt. I now mainly feel a sense of responsibility to bear witness to what I was part of, to acknowledge my participation in that, and to try to inform people better. The war really is not over. I mean, mercenaries now, when I was there, the ratio was 1-to-1 mercenary to soldier. It's far greater than that. The war.
When you say mercenary, are you saying, I would say contractor? What do you?
Yes. I'm thinking specifically of the subgroup of corporations which make an enormous profit of our taxpayer dollars for suppressing the population. And they are no longer restrained by any rule of law, thanks to a Supreme Court case, Titan versus Saleh. Saleh versus Titan. 250 Iraqis sued Titan Corporation for torture. And the Obama administration actually argued that the Supreme Court should drop the case because their services are so vital to the U.S. So there is no law at this point that restrains mercenaries from using the most brutal of tactics against civilian populations. And we are spending billions of our dollars when all around us, schools and transit and healthcare are being cut. The basic needs that we have as a society are being constantly taken away from to feed corporations that are profiting off misery both here and overseas.
I'm curious as to how you got through your service over there with the reality you were seeing and experiencing. And I'm curious as to how many of your fellow soldiers were having the same experience you were, or were they believing what their mission was and feeling positive?
I would say most of the soldiers I served with began as believers. But I myself thought it was a preemptive illegal war. I thought we were going in for the wrong reasons. There was a lot I didn't know at the time, and there was certainly self-deception practiced on my part. But in every chow hall all over Iraq, we traveled all over Iraq as truckers, Fox News was blaring from every single wall. And we were not allowed to change the channel. We were not allowed to turn the volume down. So really,
you were being propagandized constantly by your government. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And many of my fellow soldiers believed what they were seeing on Fox News rather than what they were seeing out the window at first. But then as we experienced constant, honestly, betrayal by our government, I mean, we watched these gleaming convoys of Halliburton Company, trucks in perfect condition, making money for that corporation, while our trucks broke down again and again on the road. We didn't have the most basic, mechanical parts that we needed to keep our trucks running. We didn't have armor on our trucks. We didn't have armor that could stop a bullet for the first few months. We wore Kevlar that basically was show. We were told to put it on every time we came to a, where there would be cameras, so that any media of us would show us with something that looked like armor but wasn't. we would be sent across the Tikrit Triangle, which is one of the most dangerous Ba'athist areas. We would find that 2 other platoons had also been sent to pick up the same load. So we would be wasting all these trips across, through very dangerous territory, risking our lives for nothing. It was incredibly badly managed, incredibly callous and disrespectful of the lives that had been offered, really, by the men and women who wanted,
Well, it seems what you were seeing was exactly what President Eisenhower warned us about, the military-industrial complex,
yes,
represented by Halliburton. So the privatization of America's wars,
there are many billions being made off of us.
So it makes sense then that Republicans who serve corporations would want to make as many wars as they possibly could.
Well, I have to say it's both a Democratic and a Republican profit that is made. There are. I worked very hard for Obama's campaign in 2008, and I have been extremely disappointed by Obama's position on torture, on indefinite detention, on assassination of American citizens without any due process, and on his support for companies like Titan, which, there's no debate about the facts of the case. They tortured at least 250 Iraqis, and they should be held to account. There should be some sort of rule of law that counts for those corporations as well as for the 2.3 million people in our prisons that are put away for things like...
So the rules do not apply to...
Right now,
them.
With the way that campaign financing works, even the people with the best of intentions, even people like Obama who taught the Constitution, are placed within a system that... leads to corruption, leads to double standards, leads to favoring of those who are most wealthy and powerful and are willing to use their power in the most brutal of ways, whether it's through the use of economic force or physical force.
Helen Gerhardt, my guest, she's a veteran of the Iraq War. Undeclared. Stop and think about that. It was one of those undeclared ones.
Yeah.
So technically, we don't do declared wars anymore. And to say that it changed your life would be an understatement. Big understatement. I have to take a break, don't I? Yes, I do. I thought I did. I have to take a break, and we'll come right back to Helen Gerhardt.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Winter has arrived and it's cold outside, so get to Little's for all your UGG needs. Little's has Uggs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. And don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more, all available at Little's Shoes. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for a closer look at City Theater's South Side stories. Plus, Lisa Marie Presley, Chicago, Led Zeppelin, and news of the weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
For the millions living with COPD, breathing becomes a real struggle. COPD stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but you may have heard of it as chronic bronchitis or emphysema. Over time, it makes it harder and harder to breathe until you feel like you're breathing through a straw. COPD is the 4th leading cause of death in the U.S. It kills one person every 4 minutes, and it took my grandmother. An estimated 24 million Americans are affected, but as many as half of them don't even know it. It's a race against time to spread the word about this serious disease. If you're over 35 and have ever smoked, you could be at risk. The good news is, there are steps you can take to improve your symptoms. I'm Danica Patrick, and I drive for COPD. Take action today to breathe better tomorrow. Join the movement at driveforcopd.com, take our screening questionnaire today, and talk to your doctor.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, we're talking to, what was you were a sergeant?
I left the Army as a sergeant, but I served in Iraq as a specialist, which is one grade above private. And basically, it's a private.
And when you were driving those trucks around, you were in this absurdity about, and women will not be serving in combat. That doesn't work anymore. That's bull.
It is, sure, yeah. I have to say I'm very glad I was a trucker. I'm very glad I got to travel all around Iraq and meet so many Iraqis and get to talk to them and hear the real experience versus the Chow Hall Fox News experience. So that was the best part for me, being able to really, hear and write down stories and see human beings that I really liked and respected and got to, work with. The best part of my deployment is when we were in Dawanya and we were working with Iraqis on a daily basis. There was a young man there who had his doctorate in English from the University of Baghdad, and he honestly didn't want to tell me the worst. He didn't want to hurt my feelings, but it was very important for me to be able to understand how the Marines were acting in his town, how they were brutalizing the population. So I had to drag those answers out of him, but it was really, really important to be meeting people face to face and hearing the real impact of what we were doing.
Back to this country. So we have, I can't even imagine how many people served in Iraq. Do you have that
I
number?
do not have the figures. I wish I had come with more stats.
Incredible number.
And there have been so many repeated deployments. People sent back over and over again, no matter what their condition. I mean, I served with a man who was, he should have been able to retire, and he was told the wrong retirement, the wrong stop-loss date. So at 65, he ended up serving. He ended up having traumatic brain injury. He, had to fight he and his wife had to fight for years to get him basic care. Many, many veterans have not received the kind of care that they do.
I think I heard Obama yesterday at, Arlington say something like, and these men and women who fought for their country should not have to fight for jobs. They shouldn't have to fight for the care that they have earned. But they do. Constantly.
They do, absolutely. And women have, I was extraordinarily lucky. I had a squad leader who was very, when I first met him, he said that he thought that women should not serve in the military. But he watched me in action, and based on my behavior, he gave me the same level of responsibilities and respect that he gave to his other male soldiers. He ended up being a good friend. Mm-hmm. And when I faced harassment, I knew he'd be behind me. I myself pretty much dealt with it myself, but I knew that he would support me. Whereas, the figure is something like 1 in 3 women.
I can't believe these figures. I'm just constant harassment.
Deal with sexual assault. My own squad, the first sergeant of our platoon ended up being removed from his command because he'd had 3 relationships with E4s. That's 4 grades underneath him in terms of rank.
Well, you know what the answer to that is not let women in. Well, that's how people react. Well, you let these women in, and the men.
Well, and I think the answer is simply to demand that there be equitable application of our UCMJ regulations. That unfortunately, when I was in the Army, UCMJ was a very...
That's just a universal code of military justice? What? Uniform
code of military justice. And we're so great on acronyms.
I tried to figure out UCMJ.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but if we actually followed that code, we would be, what I would consider a fairly ethical force in, the range of war. But as our own soldiers are treated, as we treat civilians, we simply do not follow that code, at least in my experience. I saw a lot of double standards being applied. So, yes, we just need to uphold the basic, rule of law, whether it's military law or civilian law. And it's possible. Other countries and other armies do that. We have done it better ourselves in the past. I get very impatient with the kind of cynicism that says this is just the way that war is, or this is just the way the world works. The thing is that we know we can do better. We have examples of integrity, and that's something that we can practice.
You know, people say that because of our amazing medical, leaps forward since Vietnam, the death toll in Iraq and Afghanistan is much less than it would have been, because a lot of people who've been hurt in those wars would have died earlier. However, what we're ending up with is such a maimed population of veterans who are coming back. And if they're not maimed, I mean, without limbs, but it's the psychological damage that freaks me out. It has to be a minority of people who come back who are not harmed.
It depends on the kind of service where you serve. So many of the soldiers I knew never left base. Others that went out and suffered and did harm most of them that I know have some level of psychological trauma or damage. Causing damage causes damage, and I speak from experience. When you know you've been part of making your own country less safe, when you know that you have done harm to others, and that you continue to do it despite your knowledge, that's damaging. And so it's no surprise to me that the rate of suicide has been so high. I also feel that the care that veterans have received, in some ways it's been a way to shut soldiers up. People don't want to hear some of this. I can't tell you how many times.
Tell me what you're saying. So you mean somebody goes in for care, and
how many times I have spoken to the media and I've had it edited out. It's been edited to make me look more heroic.
We're not going to edit. Say what you're going to say.
So, but to have people expressing pain, like the way to move, my feeling is the way to move through the pain is to acknowledge what you've been part of, what you have seen, what you have witnessed, what you have suffered. Too many veterans are simply given medications that, looking at the data, the suicide rates actually go up. When people are not allowed to talk about,
come to terms with, deal with reality.
When their experience is not respected, and not used to let people really talk it through and understand what they've been part of. And it doesn't matter what conclusion they can come to. Maybe they'll come to the conclusion that their service was a good thing. But the thing is that thousands, the New York Times has done a great series on this. There's the thousands of veterans that are simply given these medications that dull them to the point where they can't function. They're on disability for the rest of their lives because of the medication.
So when they go seeking help, rather than doing the more labor-intensive, longer thing of talk therapy, of literally working through it. And I would think group therapy would be wonderful to have groups of veterans sitting around and talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that takes a long time and requires.
Yeah.
It's so much easier here. Take that pill.
Yes, absolutely.
And shuffle out of here in a zombie state.
It depends on where you live too. If you're in a rural area, if you're not near a big city, a major area like this, Pittsburgh has one of the better VA systems and better counseling systems. But if you're one of the largest proportion that doesn't have easy access to that, then medication that's the way to basically put these people in a straitjacket to some extent, to quell their anger, their perceived, so many times there's like this dual, we're seen as both heroes and monsters, and which way will we act? Which way, anywhere I go, I have an immediate halo. Many times I'm the veteran who served, right? But at the same time, there's this fear of the veteran. We sent them out to do our dirty work. And we know that they have been changed by it in terrible ways, and that there's a great deal of rage in veterans, and people are afraid of that rage. My own anger, my own rage has been monstrous, I will say, based on my experience.
Have you had good mental health care from the VA?
I chose not to go to the VA because my own brother was put on 6 different medications, that he ended up having a seizure. He lost most of his memory. He was deeply damaged by his own psychiatric care, so I had done a lot of study, and I knew what the potential results were of being diagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder, being diagnosed as having depression, and many times various types of care are only accessible if you take the medications. So I struggled with the desire for suicide in my first 2 years. The way out of my depression, the way forward for me was to acknowledge what I'd been part of, to start bearing witness to it, to start writing about it, to start speaking out about it, to become active in helping to inform my country and other potential soldiers and other soldiers who had suffered, and all the Muslim, our fellow citizens and immigrants that had suffered so badly during the War on Terror, and the refugees, to start really saying we can't ignore this. This is too crucial for us to look at the costs and consequences of our behavior. That, for me, was the way out of that depression. And I'm just very, very glad I never took a pill, because I feel pretty solid now. And, that's, I'm not only doing anti-work, I'm doing work for the good things in our lives, whether it's transit or, healthcare or, but too many veterans are simply given that medication and told to keep taking your meds, and they never get a chance.
And to withdraw, they also withdraw. Now you are dealing with all of this by pouring all of this energy into quite the opposite of withdrawal. You are absolutely embracing all kinds of, issues and things.
Yeah, and across
empowering.
a range of politics. I mean, I have friends who are so super conservative, and I have friends who are so super liberal. And the thing for me, the cure was engagement. For me, the cure was to try to care for the people around me. And I have received incredible care in return, incredible generosity in return.
So you say the biggest mistake you made was going in.
Yeah. I would never do that again, right? But also, in accepting the choice that I made, it can be a source of strength and movement forward. Having accepted, I did this. I made the wrong choice. I made the wrong choice to keep getting up in the truck after I knew about Abu Ghraib. But I also, after Abu Ghraib, I helped challenge some of the behavior of our own unit towards civilians in what I think were constructive ways. And there are all these small skills of courage that take practice. And many times getting up in a soapbox and preaching is not the way to do it. You can convince your fellow soldiers to behave better by showing your caring and respect for them, even as you make very clear that the behavior or the way that they're hurting and damaging other people is wrong. It's just so learning the ways of connecting with people that you deeply disagree with. Keep respecting them as people, but absolutely say this is the behavior. Stop. That I'm glad for having learned some of that. And. In my work now, that's a constant practice.
There's a sense that veterans are conservatives. I mean, the way our politics works is...
There's a lot of liberal veterans.
That's what I've thought.
Yeah.
Do you think it could even... do you think you were politicized by your service?
I was fairly apolitical when I went to Iraq. I was liberal but apolitical. I wasn't that engaged. I had been an artist. I was finishing up a degree in art and English. I had kind of reacted away from my parents' politics by just focusing on friends, on my art. And going to Iraq let me know I have a responsibility as a citizen to be engaged in the public discussions and the public decisions that are going to affect so many people. That my disengagement, my apolitical apathy in a lot of ways had helped create the situation
where we could go to war under false pretenses, probably. You were part of the great sleeping American population.
Absolutely.
Well, she ain't sleeping anymore, I can tell that. We woke her up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
What an unusual, wonderful woman you are.
Thank you. Same.
Oh, no, and what a life experience. You know, you say you regret it, but in some ways, that horrific experience you had turned you into the fight you're fighting now, as opposed to the fight you fought there. Is a lifetime fight that you're going to do incredible good.
It's work. Fighting with other people too. You know, you become connected with this range of people that come from such different stances, but are working toward basic civil rights, civil liberties, human rights, and that's
wonderful, and empowering. And I would think, you would feel very good about that. Very good about that, and you should. Thank you. She's not a hero. She's not a time bomb.
Tell you, I am a fallible human being.
Yes.
That's making mistakes all the time.
We do throw that hero word around so much it makes me puke.
Man. I agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
And our returning heroes. Well, some of them may be. I don't know, but I mean, who the hell? What the? Jeez. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tomorrow we'll talk more about. Well, we didn't even mention Petraeus today. Jeez. Okay, tomorrow we'll talk more about Petraeus. Wow. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.